It's a crossover Tuesday on Locked On Rams. The Locked On Arizona Cardinals is in the house with Alex Clancy. Which quarterback is in a bigger problem? Which one has a bigger health issue? All of that, plus your key matchups, players to look for, and predictions. It's all coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's Thursday. That means crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This time, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, Travis Rogers, the Travis Rogers of Locked On Rams, at Travis Rogers on Twitter. So here's the thing, and before I get into that, this episode of Crossover Thursday, as always, is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their PrizePick projections, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code Locked On. That's PrizePicks.com, promo code Locked On. So I had a joke and I had a thing that I talk about a lot where the 1%ers on Twitter don't have a number after their name. So at Travis Rogers does it, and that's tired now, okay? I'm evolving. Okay. Have you had a dummy account with the now check mark enabled public of Travis Rogers? Because that's the new claim to fame on Twitter.
No, I have not, Alex. I have not had the pleasure of having someone pretend to be a middle-aged, overweight podcaster / radio host. I have been short of that threshold of fame. I'm right in the sweet spot where I don't need to have a number, but that I don't need to worry about people creating dummy accounts on my behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I think there should be a yet exactly. After that. Who knows what the future is going to hold?
Very good point.
What we do know is what the future held since the last time you and I talked is vastly different than both either of us could have expected. So if you haven't listened to a Crossover Thursday yet, Travis and I are going to talk about the keys to victory in the first segment, the key matchups in the second, and kind of give our predictions, players of the game, kind of a smorgasbord of everything you want and need to know ahead of Sunday's matchup at SoFi Stadium between the Cardinals and Rams, a place where the Cardinals got off the schneid against Sean McVay for the first time in, 12 games at the time, and, got a victory. Travis himself said that Kyler Murray looked like an MVP early in last season, and, things have changed since then. But I do want to ask you, key to victory obviously starts with quarterback. Matthew Stafford, it's been a thing. Got a contract extension in the offseason on the heels of the Super Bowl win. And then there's something that came out. Was it the tail end of last year that he got hurt and it was kind of left under wraps? And then now it's kind of expounded into what the hell is wrong with Matthew Stafford?
Yeah, so you go back to when they really had a bad month in November last year. They did not win a game in the month of November. They were 0-3. They had a bye week in there too. They didn't win a single game, and Stafford threw a pick six in all 3 of them. And he just did not look like the guy that had been the quarterback of the team up until that point. And thankfully, he didn't look like the guy that was the quarterback after that point. But there were whispers and rumblings about that his elbow was giving him a hard time. And, season ends, they win the Super Bowl. Everybody's very excited. And the Rams go about trying to get the elbow right. He goes about trying to get it right. And then camp opens, and they're already, he's not going to throw. We need to be careful with his elbow. So we're trying to figure out exactly how healthy he is or is not. The part that's been a real challenge, and like you said, Alex, obviously this league is all about quarterbacks and whether your guy's playing well or not, and whether he's, are they not playing well because he's not playing well, or you're not playing well because you're not getting a run game, you're not blocking up front, you have bad wide receivers, whatever the scheme's bad, whatever the other reasons may be. I would argue, and I have said, it's impossible to extract Matthew Stafford's performance from the team. And when he's in concussion protocol this week and he's, he may or may not play on Sunday, they're going to kind of go, day to day, as Sean McVay was saying earlier. I don't know if this is an additional injury on top of an elbow injury on top of something. I don't know, because I can't tell you if, his elbow's terrible so they're disguising this as a concussion. It's impossible to evaluate Matthew Stafford. They can't run the ball. They have exactly one guy who catches passes. They can't block anybody. They don't have anything going on. They score 12 points a game. It's impossible to tell, oh, look, that ball's coming out of his hand differently than it did previously. He's made some great throws this year. Most of them have either gone to Cooper Kupp or been dropped. He's had some bad throws along the way. So it's kind of a challenge to figure out exactly what it is. I'll take him at their word that he's in the protocol because he got hit in that game and started to exhibit some symptoms once we got into the middle of this week. But this entire season has been impossible to say, that this player is the problem when so many things are the problem.
Samesies. I'm so happy you brought it around. So that's what we call a professional transition into my turn to talk, ladies and gentlemen, because that's exactly what's happening with the Cardinals. Matthew Stafford, they're eerily similarly built, but the Rams are built with more talent. Both are very top heavy. They're very top heavy. And for vastly different reasons, the Rams traded away a lot of their future, even though they've got pretty much a full slate of 2024 picks. Yes. The Cardinals did the same kind of thing with Zach Ertz and signing James Conner and trading for DeAndre Hopkins and, drafting Kyler Murray. The thing that I've been saying since this kind of downturn by the Cardinals is the only thing worse than having a problem is not knowing why there's a problem.
Yes.
And that's something that's you look at the Cardinals, you look at the Rams, it's the Rams should be better. Even though Matthew Stafford is hurt, the run game has been completely extinct. And that's something you didn't necessarily see with the multi-headed running back crew. That the Cam Akers thing is one of the bigger enigmas we've seen. And one thing that I saw is, before I pivot to the Cardinals, is losing OBJ and Von Miller, who has to be a vampire. He has to be, because he's gotten better as he's gotten older. It doesn't make any sense. The fact that they gave him so much cheese in Buffalo is cool. Ain't no way that's going to work out. And now he's still one of the perennial better edge rushers in the game. With the Cardinals, the defense was ignored, like the middle child, like Jan Brady this offseason. Yes. Thank you for
Marsha.
Yeah. And the offense was supposed to be this juggernaut or close to it, supposed to be top 10 in the NFL. That's not coming to fruition. And the defense, although maligned by many because they've given up a lot of points, I see it as the offense not doing their job in being the strength of this team and forcing a lesser than talent-wise side of the ball to pick up the pieces when that's not how they were constructed. So with the Rams, it seems a little bit more of an enigma than the Cardinals. I know that the offense should be better than it is. Why? That's the problem when we don't know why there's a problem.
Yeah, like you said, the similarities are kind of spooky, frankly, because the number one problem the Rams have is the offensive line. This is their 9th game of the season coming up on Sunday, right? This will be the 9th different offensive line that they will start in 9 games. So that's the problem. But the problem is okay, even when you do block it up well on occasion, and not that, but I mean, it's not like they have a blown assignment on every play. Even then, it doesn't work. And is it because Darrell Henderson doesn't have the chops? Is it because Cam Akers and Sean McVay hate each other's guts? Is it because Matthew Stafford made a bad read, or Allen Robinson doesn't know which way to turn? It could be yes is the answer, or no is the answer. It's impossible to tell because so infrequently do they have the opportunity to say, okay, let's take a look at this. And even when you kind of go through and you look at the tape and everything else, there are 10 different things going wrong at once. So which one led to the other 2 or 10 or whatever it may be? It's been a very, very tricky puzzle. And then, like you said as well, because the Rams have operated in the draft the way that they have for the better part of about 5 or 6 years, their depth is non-existent. It's like a balloon, right? You've got all of these people on the surface of the balloon. You got Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey and Bobby Wagner and Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, but on the inside of the balloon, there's nothing there. And once you have to go into the balloon to pull somebody out, there's nobody available. Their starting center for 2 weeks was a guy that was a cop 2 years ago. And it's just these are the guys that they're having to start NFL games with, playing a Super Bowl schedule. That there's a reason that they're 3-5.
Yeah, and all is not lost still. You still have Seattle twice. The Cardinals lost to Seattle twice, but they've got 2 NFC West matchups on Sunday and the week after. This, if it were any team but Seattle atop it, we would be having a different conversation. If the Rams were 6-3, if the 49ers, especially now with Christian McCaffrey, et cetera, 6-3, this season could potentially be lost for both. But with Geno Smith, do it again. It's that kind of thing. Do it again. And having said that, there are huge matchups within this game to keep our respective teams that we cover afloat. We're going to hit those next here as we roll on Thursday. Locked On Crossover Thursday. It's been a long ass day. Crossover Thursday on Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. BlueNile. Okay. BlueNile differentiates itself in a couple different ways. So, as the original online jeweler, BlueNile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. BlueNile has helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring, and their easy online tools let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. And BlueNile's bench jewelers will help you handcraft her perfect one-of-a-kind engagement ring. And this is where the differentiation really comes into play. If you have no idea what the hell you're doing like me, they've got 24/7 help via chat or phone to help you so you don't make a mistake. You keep everything in your budget and get you going on the right path. Shop stress-free with BlueNile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All BlueNile's orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. Make your moments sparkle like Travis Rogers does with BlueNile. Go to BlueNile.com and use code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BLUENILE.com, code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code LOCKEDON.
Sparkle like me.
Crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Locked On Rams, Travis Rogers. Locked On Cardinals, Alex Clancy. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow Travis at Travis Rogers on Twitter. Check us both out Monday through Friday, free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. So this is like cousins meeting at the family reunion twice a year. And we've talked about this a lot. I've talked about this with Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks and Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker from Locked On 49ers. Every interdivisional, relationship between teams is a little bit different.
Yep.
The NFC West doesn't really fit in a stencil. Like every specific matchup has different history in a kind of a clunky and weird way because there's been so much up and down with all of these organizations over the last 15 years. With the Rams and the Cardinals, it's big brother, little brother is what it seemed like. And I said last year, it's almost better that the Rams do win the Super Bowl because then talent will disperse. Nobody expected Allen Robinson and Bobby Wagner to sign, but it's like once somebody wins one, it's like, okay, let me go get my money somewhere else. And it hasn't necessarily happened that way, but the Rams have regressed as the Cardinals have. Key matchups. I'm going to go first here. Okay. It's Kyler Murray versus Cliff Kingsbury. This is what it's been for me. And I used to say it as a joke every Thursday, almost every Thursday. It's not about the opposing defense. It's if this offense can figure out a rhythm more than one good drive a game. That's the big one because they scored early last week. Kyler Murray ripped off a 20-plus yard run on a broken play, which is, for those who've been paying attention, the majority of the success the Cardinals have had is when Kyler Murray's just been able to go. And if they can figure that out, this season is not lost for the Cardinals. And that's the big matchup for me. What's yours? And I'll give one more after.
So I think that I don't know if this is a matchup per se, Alex, but I think it's the most important thing that the Rams need to figure out. And this was going to be my answer when I talked to you today, when we talked about matchups before Matthew Stafford may or may not play. So I think it becomes even more important if he does not play. Somebody has to move the ball on the ground. So somebody's going to have to do it because if Matthew Stafford does play, they need to run the ball. They have the worst running attack in the league. They have a handful of guys in Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson. They brought Malcolm Brown back, who's a short yardage specialist, and they just do not have any success on the ground, full stop. They had, going into the Tampa game, their leading rusher had fewer than 200 yards through 7 games. So they just don't move the ball on the ground. Now, all of a sudden, you may play a game where Bryce Perkins or John Wolford is your quarterback, and John Wolford has yet to throw an NFL touchdown pass. Bryce Perkins has never played in an NFL game. One of those two guys, and I wouldn't be surprised if you saw them both, quite frankly. I think that maybe a little mix and match, and kind of like when I like to go out to dinner, I'll have a little bit of both. Why do I have to pick one? Yeah, I'll take a little bit of both. And maybe Sean McVay will subscribe to that. But even if they do, somebody's going to have to run the ball, which is why, and I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, if they do have to use somebody other than Matthew Stafford, I'm more interested in seeing Perkins play because I think he brings a little bit more to the table than Wolford. Wolford is more like Stafford, only not nearly as effective. Perkins is a different type of quarterback. He runs a little bit better. He's more athletic. He can get out of the pocket, all these sort of things. But somebody's going to have to do something with their legs rather than Matthew Stafford throwing it to Cooper Kupp, because that's you were talking about Kyler Murray's, the offense being him just kind of making something happen on the fly. The Ram offense has been throw it to Cooper Kupp about, somewhere between 10 and 15 yards in the air and hope that he can make somebody miss and run. They have 3 big plays this year. All 3 of them have gone to Cooper Kupp. A couple of them have gone for, we had one 67-yard touchdown last week, a couple of weeks ago. They had a 75-yard touchdown with Kupp. That's it. There's not even the Tyler Higbee play or the Van Jefferson play or Allen Robinson. There's been nothing other than the offense going through Cooper Kupp. And if they're going to win, and the Cardinals are coming at just the right time, like you said, the big brother, little brother thing. I think they've won 12 of the last 13 times they've played. The Rams have won this game, including the postseason. The Cardinals are coming at the right time. If you can't figure it out now, you're not figuring it out. And whoever loses this game, that's it. They're done. There's just too much traffic ahead of them, both in the division and outside of the division. Whoever wins this game can tell yourself the lie for another week or two that, hey, we're still in it. The Rams play Seattle 2 more times. They still have a schedule that, other than the Kansas City game they have, every other game they have is kind of a 50-50 shot. So if you get a little bit lucky, a little bit better, you can tell yourself that lie. But if they don't run, it doesn't matter. Stafford, Perkins, Wolford, whoever it may be, they're not going to throw for 400 yards and be able to do it by themselves. Somebody's going to have to move the ball on the ground.
Yeah, for sure. And Travis Rogers, Locked On Rams, Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals, crossover Thursday on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day, baby. So, when it comes to there's one more thing that I want to talk about, but when I see the Cooper Kupp numbers, I always go back to this, and it's basketball, and I don't know why. I think it was the Spurs one year against the Suns when they said, let Steve Nash score 40. Mm-hmm. Just make him a scorer. Do you remember that? And 2 or 3 games in a row, he dropped the 40 burger, and they lost. And it's like, oh, that's how you beat the Suns. You take away his strength of facilitating for others. And it seems like that's kind of what people are doing against. You bracket, you keep Cooper Kupp in front of you, but you let him get targeted all the time. And then you take it away when you take it away. And that strangles the offense. That's one guy. That's Russell Westbrook, in OKC when KD was gone. I know. Well, I'm saying okay. When no. A better example is James Harden in Houston, where he dribbled for 20 seconds and then finds somebody with 2 seconds left to take a bad shot or retake a shot himself. The offense is just completely stagnant, and that's kind of equated to the Rams a little bit with Cooper Kupp, yeah?
Yeah, I think you're right, because Cooper Kupp's numbers are terrific. If you're playing fantasy football and you have Cooper Kupp on your squad, you're very pleased with the season that he's given you. But if you're a Rams fan, Cooper Kupp's numbers have had 0 impact on their ability to win games. He's getting his 10 catches. He's getting his 100 yards. He's getting in the end zone once a game, give or take. He's been great. But he's the only person doing something. You're right. I'm going to let you do whatever you want, but everybody else gets nothing. And because no matter how good he is, he's not going to score 4 touchdowns in a game. The Rams are getting a touchdown at this point, and it's coming through Kupp. So if I shut down the running game, if Allen Robinson gives me nothing, if Jefferson gives me nothing, if Higbee gets me nothing, then, fine. He can get 2, and we're still going to win. And I think you're right. I think that the methodology on how to beat them is not super complicated. I think I mentioned this today on my radio show to kind of have a tangent here for a second. You could see this coming. In the Super Bowl last year, Odell goes down, right? He tears up his knee right before the end of the first half. The entire second half was Stafford to Kupp, Stafford to Kupp, Stafford to Kupp. But because it was, relatively new, that it hadn't been that one-dimensional, that they didn't run the ball, they didn't throw the ball to anybody else. It was Stafford to Kupp. And it was good enough for a half for them to grab it. Well, now you got a whole offseason. You have a bunch of games this year to prepare for one guy. I don't care who the worst defensive coordinator in the league is. If I got to just deal with one guy, and that's what the Rams are right now, they're going to figure that out. And they have. The Rams have been the 3 teams they beat, Arizona, Atlanta, and Carolina, are not good teams. Every decent team they've played, and I put Tampa in the not very decent, they not only have they lost, they really haven't even been in the game other than the Tampa game. They're a very easy team to defend right now.
Yeah, and I would even say, and I said this after the Rams game, the Cardinals were the best team on the field for 2.5 quarters of that game. because the Rams, they hit it early. The offense, that was during the part of the season where the offense wasn't scoring in the first quarter. I know the Cooper Kupp had a drop. I know that Allen Robinson had a drop in the end zone. But if the Cardinals give up 20 points in a game for 17 weeks, you expect to go 11-6. 20 points in this day and age is the sexy sweet spot of what you want your defense to be.
It's 13 from 10 years ago.
Exactly. And the Cardinals had 4 scoring drives that resulted in field goals, and that's on offensive play calling and execution. I thought the Cardinals were the best team on the field, at least for half that game. That was by no means a blow, but you're right. Going into Sunday, this is the first of 2 nails in the coffin for whichever team loses. And the Cardinals, for me, one last thing before we go, before Ross Jackson yells at me for going long. Ross, I love you. Check him out. Locked On Saints. Shout out.
We all love Ross.
If the Cardinals can't get to Matthew Stafford, this is going to be a problem for the Cardinals. The Cardinals need to blitz. Remember the Titans blitz all night. Coach Yost, they have to just – it's the highest percentage of the year by Vance Joseph. He's a blitz-happy guy. Do it more. Double it. If you get beat deep, that's better than Matthew Stafford having tea parties in the backfield.
So very quickly, the way that people have been beating the Rams is by doing kind of the opposite of that, is by having that high cover and just rushing 4 and getting pressure with 4, because they've been getting pressure with 3 and 4 all night long, and they're still getting to them, and you still have a bunch of guys in coverage. So to your point, if you need to send more to get pressure, yes, but just about everybody they've played all season long has gotten pressure with something other than a blitz.
And that's why we do crossovers. That's why we do it right there. So Travis Rogers can correct me in front of everybody. Thank you very much. Follow him at Travis Rogers. Follow me at Clancy's Corner for all your Locked On Rams and Locked On Cardinals news. Predictions, little hodgepodge in the final segment. We'll roll on here on a crossover Thursday, Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting, stats, news, and analysis. I think this line opened up at 3, where the Rams are 3-point favorites, which is a pick'em if it was on a neutral field, which you wouldn't think in week 10, one way or another, that this would be, well, if this is Alabama and USC playing on a neutral field and they, whatever, like having it be pretty much a pick'em, it's wild. But BetOnline got you covered. And I do say this every BetOnline live read. If you want the weird ones of who's going to win the division or who's going to make the Super Bowl, who's going to win the MVP, they've got all the futures you could choke down. And that's why I love BetOnline more than most. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from football to basketball to soccer and esports. We've got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right. So this is kind of a dreaded segment, I think, because it's like what I've been doing is I've been trying to find ways, doing Locked On Cardinals Monday through Friday, to find a way for the Cardinals to win games, find the path. And I feel like you've been struggling recently, like, not to put words in your mouth, but I'm assuming you've been struggling recently as well with how they've played, even though they've been in more games and they've been a little bit more competitive, even though it's, definitely a step back from last season. Like, I can't find 45 points in this game.
Oh, no chance.
I can't find it. Even though the offenses have, I think DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 4 receiver in the NFL. He's not fast. He's never been fast. Cooper Kupp isn't that fast. He's the best route runner we have. Him and Justin Jefferson. I mean, Jamar Chase is honorable mention. You don't need speed to be a great receiver, and I still think DeAndre Hopkins is there, especially with the numbers he's put up through 3 weeks since coming back. Cooper Kupp, Jalen Ramsey, Aaron Donald, like, it's a star-studded affair. Kyler Murray, DeAndre Hopkins, Byron Murphy's emerged as a CB1. But I can't find 45 points. And it's not because the defenses are great. It's because the offenses aren't as great as people expect. Do you share the same sentiment?
Yeah, I do. The only way they get to 45 is if Arizona gets 30. And I don't think that that's a likely scenario. The Rams they score as few points as possible. They actually had a couple of opportunities to score touchdowns last week. They scored one, and it was on a 67-yard play, right? That the play I mentioned where they hit Kupp, and about 50 of those were him just outrunning somebody to the corner. They had a couple of other drives that were inside the red zone, one of them inside the 10-yard line, and it just bogs down and it stops. They kick field goals. They don't score touchdowns. So obviously that's going to keep that number on the other side of 46, like you mentioned. The Rams just need to find a way to win. And I never in my life, Alex, thought that I would say this. I'm even okay with a Jeff Fisher special at this point. that if they win a game 10-7 or 10-6 or 9-3, fine. Just win the game and keep it moving and get to the next week. At some point you're going to have to get your offense figured out, but right now it literally is whatever you've got, it's got to come out right now. I don't know if it's trick plays. I don't know if it's running some wildcat. I don't know if it's Bryce Perkins. Something different needs to happen this week to get points on the board, because the Ram defense, like you said, it's not, the 85 Bears, but it's good enough. It's good enough to win games. It's good enough to keep what has so far been not a very good offensive team, but to be honest, a bad offensive football team. It's allowed them to win 3 games. They should be 4-4 right now. They should have won the game last week. The defense did more than enough to win that game. The offense let it go by not even trying to get a first down on that final drive. Mm-hmm. But if they can just find 17 points, 20 points, I think that the Rams can win this game. I just don't know if they can get to 17. They've been struggling to get to 14 the last couple. They've been putting up 10s and 12s and 13s, and 2 touchdowns feels like a big ask from this point. If Matthew Stafford's not there, it might be an impossible ask.
Yeah, and even though John Wolford is 1-0 against the Arizona Cardinals, he was responsible for unceremoniously removing the Cardinals from playoff contention 2 years ago when Kyler Murray got hurt early and then came back and tried to save it, but didn't work out. That was when the Cardinals lost to 2 backup quarterbacks in back-to-back weeks, 49ers and the Rams. Why'd I bring it up? Because John Wolford may be starting on Sunday. Just a little update. We are recording this for Thursday, okay? So if something happens between now and we record and Matthew Stafford or Kyler Murray is ruled out, we didn't keep it from you. Like, we weren't playing, we're not doing, November 10th fools here. We just didn't know at the time that we recorded. But a little thing that we did, like, I looked at BetOnline for the over-under. They've removed it from the platform right now because there's so much uncertainty. So that shows, it looks like, even though the report from Ari Meirov, I saw it first from Pro Football Focus about Matthew Stafford, like, that kind of came out of nowhere, didn't it? And I know we're going to go and, like, we'll give our score predictions in a second, but, like, where the hell did that come from? And then Kyler Murray with the hamstring, yesterday kind of came out of nowhere as well.
We were in the middle of our show today, the Travis and Slewa show that I do each day on 710 in LA, and it broke in the middle of our show. And we all kind of look, wait, Stafford is in concussion protocol? It was a big, because there wasn't a moment in that game where you saw him get, hit or hit his head on the ground. There wasn't, and I'm not trying to be disrespectful here, there wasn't a moment where you went, oh gosh, that it was just, he played and the game ended and no one really gave it much thought. So when it circled back today, it was a big surprise. And obviously that they felt that was the thing that they need to do means that there's a chance he might not play on Sunday.
I mean, I'll tell you what, just nightmare fuel for me. Just it's just you and me talking here. If Matthew Stafford doesn't play and Kyler Murray does and the Cardinals lose, you're going to see a rain. We might have to do a podcast together next week, just for funsies, just to see me bleed out of my orifices. Because, like, the thing is, like, and it's funny, and we'll get, okay, real quick, let's give our score predictions and let's talk about something fun. I think that this is going to be between the teens and low 20s for both teams. And it could come down to last possession. I'm not going to say, Cardinals win 23-17. I have no idea. It's going to come down to turnovers, and it's going to come down to teams that can execute and score touchdowns and not kick field goals. I think that's a story for both teams. I'm going to pick the Cardinals just because of the uncertainty around Matthew Stafford, because I've never – and because of how well the Cardinals played against the Rams earlier in the season, even though it didn't look like it, looking back, that was one of the better offensive performances the Arizona Cardinals put out. They just weren't executing, getting touchdowns, but they kicked 4 field. So I think the Cardinals are going to win, and I'm surprised that I'm saying that, but I think the Cardinals are going to win just because of the uncertainty around Matthew Stafford.
I'll put it like this, Alex. I think whoever gets to 17 wins the game, and I'm being serious. And I don't think the Rams can get to 17.
Okay.
I think if Arizona can score 17 points, I think they win the game. If it's played somewhere less than that, if it's played somewhere in the 14-13 range, then maybe the Rams can get there. Maybe, the Rams haven't had a defensive touchdown all season long. They haven't had a special teams touchdown all season long. So not only is the offense not doing it, they're not getting those little, bonus scores that you like to get, a handful of times over the season. So they are entirely reliant on that defense to win the game. Maybe they can get a defensive touchdown for the first time, but first one to 17, I think, wins this, and I don't think the Rams can get 17.
And so, just another oddity, the Cardinals have 4 defensive touchdowns.
None. Rams have none.
They have, and 4 out of flipping nowhere. One was the walk-off Byron Murphy against the Rams, against the Raiders. There were 2 against Andy Dalton on Thursday night, pretty much in back-to-back plays. And then Zaven Collins had one last week in a losing effort. It's just okay. We have 30 seconds left. Does Sean McVay retire in the next 2 years and go to the booth?
He leaves when Aaron Donald leaves.
He leaves when Aaron Donald leaves. So he signed an extension through when?
Aaron Donald is signed for 2 more seasons. So I think if Aaron Donald plays out his next couple of seasons, I think Sean McVay is there. I think that the Rams will try to move heaven and earth between now and the beginning of next season to try to fix the problems that are wrong with this team, because we had Les Snead on, not after the Super Bowl, before the start of the season. And he said the Rams window is the Aaron Donald window, that as long as he's Aaron Donald, they're going to continue to go for it the way that they have. And so I think Sean McVay falls into that as well.
I don't think Cliff Kingsbury's an Arizona Cardinals head coach longer than Sean McVay. I think he's removed from post before Sean McVay retires. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Travis Rogers, Locked On Rams. Crossover Thursday on the Locked On NFL portion of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We will talk to you on our respective podcasts tomorrow.